welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things parallel with you, helping I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. And in today's video, I'm actually quite excited because we're going to look into the Ram Temple. I know that there is an inauguration going to happen on 22nd of January, and well, I'm going to do live on that day, so keep that in your calendar. I think that I'm not going to set the live so early on, but maybe thinking about this right now, I just may pop it up there just so you guys are aware that this is what's going to happen. I would love for you to join me. But I think there is a debate about the obsession over the Ram Temple, and there is an interesting video coming from Sadhguru about this, and I've heard things about the importance, but I'm very curious what this video what kind of light it will shed on the situation. But before we jump into the video,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
Let's look into this video together. Is Ayodhya Ram Temple indeed needed? Interesting.
So what about this obsession with Ram and this frenzy over the Ram Temple, which of course now is going to be inaugurated? Where do you find this? Isn't it then misplaced?
I don't know, I wouldn't use those words, they're very strong words, obsession, frenzy, all this. Because if somebody has to be an inspiration after 7,000–8,000 years, there must be some element there. Not for one or two people. For millions and millions of people, if someone has to be an inspiration after thousands of years, there must be something. If we don't see that something, then we will say it's an obsession, it is this, that.
What
But
do you see?
let me come to this. And anyway, coming to that Ram temple, so Ram had a series of problems during his life. Even after thousands of years, he still has real estate issues. His real estate is not settled after thousands of years. So people who love him want to settle that real estate. I think it's settled, Supreme Court has settled it. So they want to build a temple. It is devotion. Why should it be termed as frenzy and obsession?
Is it, let me use another word which again you will say is strong, isn't it divisive?
Why is it divisive?
Because it cuts across two communities.
Really?
It's been a bloody tale, and by bloody I mean a tale of blood, a tale of killings, a tale of riots.
What's happened in the last eight…
Do they mean divisive? Because I don't know what divisive means. I feel like they mean divisive, right? Like it divides communities. Interesting.
800 years is the bloodiest tale that's ever happened in any part of the world ever. What happened to the Jews with Adolf Hitler? What happened to Native Americans with North America? What happened in Cambodia? All these things are nothing compared to what happened in India in these 800 years. And if you don't think that is bloody, and there is no any kind of remorse in people who committed those things, then just people want a small piece of real estate back for their asta, and that is divisive. Why is it divisive?
I mark that you're using the word real estate and not temple. Is that deliberate?
It is real estate, but temple is built by devotees' hearts. The land is just real estate. But it's sacred for them because it is identified as a birthplace, and obviously there's no question mark whether there was a temple or not. It is not one temple. Thousands of temples were raised because that's the policy, that it must be raised, and it will be raised in future also. If we don't protect it, it will be raised in future also. Even now in Pakistan, Bangladesh is happening. Why should it be divisive? Why can't everybody settle down to whatever nonsense they believe in and do their stuff? I can live without any belief system, but maybe people need some belief systems, so they have their beliefs. But how come I think my belief is right and yours is wrong and you must die just for believing whatever I don't believe? If you don't address that and you say all these words, it's just… what is this? Where does this come from?
You spoke about the past, you spoke about past wars. Do two wrongs make a right?
See, there are no two wrongs. It's just a request. These three icons, Shiva, Rama, Krishna, thousands have been… temples have been demolished. Nobody's asking because it's impossible to refix the history and nobody thinks it can be… we can refix the history, nor is anybody interested. These three icons, where their, the basic presence was, these three iconic places they're asking for, why can't it be just offered without a fight? Where is a fight? And nobody is fighting, they're only going to the court. Court is not a fight, it's a legal process. Why are you calling legal process a fight?
You have never prayed in your life or gone to a temple, or have you gone and when did you stop going? And have you read the scriptures?
I've definitely not read the scriptures. I'm not a temple-going person, I've built temples, but I
Yes,
don't
beautiful
go there.
ones.
If I go to a temple, if there is… see, our temples are not places of prayer. This is something that people have completely missed.
Can I just say one thing right here? This lady is like on frenzy, actually. She feels like she's on the attack. Is it just me? Or do you guys have the same sentiment? Like she's just like fire up to prove him wrong and attack him. It's interesting. It's interesting. Whatever opinion you might have of Sadhguru, because I know there are some positive, some negative. I don't quite understand the negative ones, but regardless, it is not even, relevant here. But it just feels like she's on the attack.
Probably in the north, it's completely gone. In southern India, still the instructions are there. Here the instructions are, in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, if you go to your temple, nobody told you you must pray, you must appeal to the god and this and that. If you go there, you must sit quietly in one place, because these are different types of energies. Consecrations are of different types. Each deity is consecrated in a certain way to open certain dimensions of your life. So you are supposed to sit there and imbibe that.
Okay.
Even in north, they only told you to have darshan, not have appeal, isn't it? Darshan means, because it's an energetic form, you take that impression into your mind and your heart. This will transform you. Because it's an energetic form, the physical form is just like a scaffolding. It is there, it is necessary for the visual apparatus, but it's the energetic form, you're supposed to imbibe it. Because in this civilization that you refer to as Hindu right now, which unfortunately has been so badly distorted, or let's say probably more appropriate word would be Sanatan, but that also has become a bad word today. Sanatan means eternal. So in this culture, nothing can be eternal unless it's all-inclusive. In this culture, there is no such thing as prayer. In this culture, there is darshan. In this culture, the aspiration is to not to go to heaven and sit with God. In this culture, the aspiration is to become divine. The aspiration is to become divine, because what we consider as divine is something that's risen above what we normally think is human action-reaction kind of life. See, for example, many people, even in newspapers it's being written, Tendulkar is cricketing God. Because in people's mind, at least during his time, it's still so, whatever we thought was humanly possible, he rose beyond that, just hitting a damn ball, that's all.
People say Sadhguru is God. Your followers say Sadhguru is God.
No, nobody says that. They put me to work every day. So, when they say he is God, they're not saying he lives in heaven or some nonsense. They are saying he's risen above what we think is human ceiling. He's risen above that. This is how we worshipped Rama, Krishna, everybody. They rose beyond their limitations, no matter what life throws at them. Even in a battlefield, they're cool. Even in a battlefield, he's joking. So we bow down to him when everybody's terrified of life and death. Somebody is above that, means we'll bow down to me. Even now, suppose in Indian army, there is one major or one colonel or somebody, even in bullets are flying, he's just cool. Everybody will worship him because he's risen in some way. So in this culture, we are not wanting to go to God, we want to become that. But our idea is not the God. We see everything as God. We'll bow down to a tree, we'll bow down to a cow, we'll bow down to a snake, we'll bow down to a rock, man, woman, child, anything. Because no piece of life is happening without the source of creation throbbing in it. If you recognize it, you bow down. If you don't, you don't.
So many things to address. Actually, the first one I want to pick about Rama. So I read Ramayana over Christmas, and I would not actually agree with his interpretation, because the thing is, yes, he has risen above that. He had more than extraordinary qualities, but if you read the book, you would understand that he was the God personification, incarnation himself. I'm sure Sadhguru knows that as well. And because of that, he had more than extraordinary qualities that to every human, even every god, or Ravan, it kind of, I first didn't know that, and he was arrogant to that, but he was clearly extraordinary in his capabilities. There was different energy. It was written about how he was born and about his brothers as well, etc. So I'm not too sure. I personally actually agree with that interpretation, that people worship him, but maybe you tell me if that is the reason why people actually worship Rab, that he has risen about a normal human, which he has, but the point is that he was a very divine incarnation. Now, contrary to that point, we all are, right? We all are the spark of the divine, the drop in the ocean, etc. So we also, I believe, can become that, we can raise our frequency and capabilities, etc., which I believe that's what he's talking about, that in comparison to other culture, you want to become God or godlike, which you, in essence, you already are. I feel like we just need to open ourselves up. This is why you have different practices, especially coming out of Indian yogic culture. So that's point number one. Point number two, it is interesting, and I think, when I read your comments and I interact with you, it's about how you say that when Hindus say something, it's not perceived well, and how crazy the diversity is actually, and how hard, I believe, and you tell me otherwise, it is to actually unify a country that has so much diversity, even within just like a very, one would think, a simple religious practice, or whatever practice you want to call it, if you don't want to put the religious sticker there. So it's crazy when I was listening to that, and it was just thinking like, wow, they just have different point of views. And I feel like the presenter was taking a moral high ground, which, if you are really spiritual, you get the fact that nothing is ever right or wrong, because both have to coexist together to form the 3D matter, like white matter, black matter, creation. So without bad, there is no good. Good is defined by actually bad. So I think people need to start really, if they're wanting to take a really high moral ground, realize the essence of how actually world operates. And sometimes I find it fascinating, but it's not a knowledge you learn when you watch political content. It's a knowledge you gain when you go deep inside and you want to really understand yourself, and you want to improve as a person, and you want to do a bit more spiritual kind of way of life. But it was just very interesting. What really sank in for me, like how diverse, and when you have so much diversity, I almost believe it's too much. I think it might be just so difficult to manage it and to progress. I think when I'm thinking about my part of the world, and you just have basically Christianity, if you have the religions, it's just so much easier because you have a unified belief system. And now maybe, I don't know, theory. It's just so much easier to rule because you already understand the emotional belief system, and you can manipulate people accordingly. But it's like a sword. It can be used for good or bad purposes. So but you have a different type of sword in India, so it's just very interesting. And I would wonder, do you reckon because of that the progress cannot be as fast in India? Although I do believe recently, like over the last decade, India has really risen up despite those differences. But nonetheless, if there would be a bit more unified system, I personally think, and let me know if I'm right or wrong, I would love to know your perspective, if that would help exponentially increase the improvements that are required in the country. In the comments below. And finally, the point 3 Ram Temple. Why? I don't even quite get why this is such a big deal. If this is like your historic #1 thing, which is important for clearly way too many people in the country. Yes, you have different minorities, etc. But it does feel like the majority, I don't know if you have heard of the expression called positive discrimination. So, you're overgiving to the minorities on the detriment to the majority, and that can make the majority resentful also of, let's say, the minorities. But that's just like an example of positive discrimination, and that feels like almost what is happening. And please do let me know if I'm right or wrong on this one in the comments. It's very interesting. Like it's clearly important to way too many people. It's a big event, and again, I am putting it out there. I'm going to do live, so brace yourself. Put this in mind in your in your calendar. I think I'll just do like a live, like a card, so it's coming up. And I don't quite get why this is up for debate and why it should be scrutinized so much. And well, if that's what people believe in and that's what makes them good and they want to go back to their roots, I really don't see the harm. Now, for me, I think it depends, right? And I think everything depends on the context, right? You have to read the situations in the context. So right now, if, let's say, so we have historically always had issues with Hungary, okay? Slovakia was 1,000 years under the rule of, or Slovak, you can't say Slovakia, it was like Slovak ethnic groups. The territory where the Slovak ethnic group had appeared was under the rule of Hungarians, right? And then what I would absolutely not appreciate, and what has happened maybe 2 years ago, is that Hungarian prime minister will come to Slovakia and they will say, well, I want to claim southern Slovakia, which is like a political issue of the importance that there was historically maybe more Hungarians lived there, and this is where southern Slovakia is where you have mixed Slovak and Hungarians, like Slovak-Hungarian community. And it's also, the reason why they're asking it is very very, what is the word, fruitful, the land is very good there. And I think we also have the biggest reservoir of drinkable water and in the region, I think either in whole Europe or in the Central Europe. So I understand the economical reasons for why they would want to do that. Now, the history is way too complex, right? So if I'm claiming that, I'm Hungarian and this part because it historically belonged, there was a bit more of an ethnic group than the Slovak one, should they do it or should they not? But that is just one side of the argument, right? And what you don't know is that Hungarians came to our territory from behind Urals. That was our territory here. So, I would not appreciate any such, if we are going to history. So the question is, how far in history do you want to go when you want to justify these things? Plus, I know very well, for example, with our issues, that whatever the Hungarians were writing, or it was Austro-Hungarian also empire, it was just to benefit them. So I would even debate about, you know, whatever they have put forward and what is factually correct, because I have read other studies and the proper historical studies on the subject, right? So again, everything has to be in the context, and also the Rama temple has to be understood within the context. The question is, how far do we go in history, you know, and trying to do the tit for tat type of thing. But I do believe that we should respect, cherish our roots. We should learn from our history, from our mistakes. And, you know, if that is, you know, if you know, Rama is, I think it's a really inspirational figure, especially coming out of the book. And if that feels like it brings such a sense of peace, justice, etc., you know, why is this a big deal? This is what's going on in my head. Why is this a big deal? You know, if historically, even prior Islam, that was that temple. So this is where I am struggling. But the question is, how far in the history you want to go, right? Like maybe the other part, the Islam part, will want to say, well, it was our temple, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so this is kind of very interesting for me to observe, and I would love to know your thoughts about like why there is so much debate, and where do you feel it's justified to go in history? How far can we go to justify what we do? In the comments below. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please give a thumbs up, share, like, and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, please do take care. I'm sending much love. Bye-bye.